Sustainable tourism and being responsible ashore in the Galapagos. Galapagos is a national park and it's a marine reserve. It's 40 nautical miles of marine reserve, and only a very small area, about 1% of all the land, is used, right, for human settlements. Now this is what makes the Galapagos so special, and why the Galapagos has been preserved in such good conditions. It's part of the rules of the national park are determined by the director of the Galapagos National Park, and some of these rules will be very important to understand because this is what will ensure the Galapagos to remain in such good conditions for the future. Important to understand how itineraries work. The Galapagos National Park will determine an itinerary to each ship, and this will be based on the workload that each visitor site has. The idea is that you don't want to have too many boats on one side so that there's too many people and the impact will be greater on that regard. All these rules are in place. Are very important that we comply, and that as a guide, as a naturalist guide, is part of our job over here, right? Some things that you want to take in account, always very important, will be the maximum distance that you can get from the animals. About 2 meters or 6 feet. This is as close as you can get, and you see it can be quite a challenge sometimes because these animals, they will fly straight at you. When you talk about birds, land finches or Darwin finches, they will land on top of you, or the iguanas, they don't realize you're there, so it's very easy to get too close to the animals over here in the Galapagos. Very important as well would be, if we're doing photography, no flash for photography, right? This is something that you need to take in account, but we're in the equator, so there's no need for a flash, right? There's lots of sunlight throughout the day, all of the time. Our itinerary, as mentioned, is determined by the Galapagos National Park, and they tell us where to go and when to go. So there's not a lot of flexibility on this regard. The itinerary that your ship has, that your cruise has been assessed by the National Park, and this is the one that you have to follow. You have to stick to this itinerary. Visitor sites, they will be opening from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and you want to make sure that you use your time the best you can, the most efficiently, and you get to enjoy as much as you can over here at the Galapagos Islands.
Hi, my name is Benno. I'm the founder of Galapatours. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about sustainability and being responsible ashore in the Galapagos Islands. As you can see behind me, the Galapagos Island truly is one of the natural wonders and one of the most pristine places that is left in this beautiful world. Now, being responsible ashore is one of the key behaviors of all tourists that come to Galapagos in order to help us preserve this archipelago. But first, let me explain how the National Park of Galapagos organizes tourism here in order to make it the most sustainable possible. The administration of the Galapagos National Park decides, so first you should know 95%, 98% in fact, of all the archipelago of Galapagos is the national park. So you can move, of course, freely around inside of the cities, but as soon as you step into the national park, which is basically the boundary of the city, and as soon as you step into the national park, you can't just walk around freely, but you always have to be accompanied by a guide in groups of maximum 16 people. So always accompanied by a guide. And once you move around, the national park only allows you to visit certain visitor sites. They're called visitor sites or highlights, we call them on our page, and only those sites can you actually visit. And even within those sites, there are defined paths that only within those paths can you move. Why? Simply in order to preserve the maximum, the archipelago in the maximum way possible. Now, when you are on a cruise, your cruise has a predefined itinerary, and you will find on our pages that for example, comparing the Archipel's cruise to the cruise of the ship Coral, the cruises might visit the same spots, but on different days, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, but the cruise itineraries are fixed. This is simply because the national park defines for each visitor spot a maximum number of visitors that are allowed per day, and then allocates those slots to the different ships. So for example, the national park would say, okay, the ship Coral on a Monday morning can visit this spot, on a Monday, Tuesday evening they can visit that, on a Wednesday morning they would visit that spot, etc., while another ship would then come in the afternoon, thus ensuring that not too many people at the same time visit those spots. Now, having explained that, how can you contribute to sustainable tourism and to being responsible ashore? When you come ashore, together with your guide, please stick to the routes, don't get too close to the animals, and admittedly that can be difficult sometimes because the animals here, they're not afraid of us humans, and It has happened to me that a marine iguana comes and starts munching away at my shoe, or that a finch would land directly on the brim of my hat, or even that a frigate bird would start picking away at my arm. So even though the animals come really close to you, try to maintain a distance of at least 2 meters to the animals, and always listen to what your guide says. This is how you can help us being responsible ashore. And lastly, as Galapatours, we contribute for every cruise that we sell. We compensate the CO2 that comes out of our own pocket. No costs involved for you, the customer. And this is the way that we as a company try to contribute to a well-being and to a more sustainable ecosystem here in Galapagos. Now, I thank you very much for your trust and for your interest. If you have any questions about the ecosystem, about being responsible, or even the national park rules, then feel free to send me an email. My email is benno@galapatours.com, or you can reach out to our team at service@galapatours.com. Thanks very much, and greetings from Galapagos.